Warning: the following story contains descriptions of graphic violence. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome back to Sleeper Cell 41. In today's episode, we delve into the twisted mind of Glen Edward Rogers, from his chilling crimes to the mysterious connections he had. Join me as we uncover the dark secrets behind this convicted serial killer. Let's jump right in. This is the case of Glen Rogers. Rogers was born and raised in Hamilton, Ohio. He was one of 7 children born to Edna and Claude Rogers. Among his siblings, as brother Clay, their father Claude was a hydro-pulp operator at the local Champion Paper Company. Rogers was expelled from his junior high school before he was 16. Sometime after his expulsion, his 14-year-old girlfriend Deborah Ann Nix got pregnant. The couple married. They had another child together in 1981. In 1983, Nix filed for divorce, alleging physical abuse by Rogers. Authorities in Hamilton, Ohio, suspected Rogers of fatally stabbing or strangling an elderly man in that city in 1993. Later, Rogers moved away from Ohio, surfacing in California. In 1995, he was named as a suspect in the murders of 4 women that year, in California, Mississippi, Florida, and Louisiana, respectively. After being arrested in Kentucky on November 13th, Rogers originally told police he had committed nearly 70 murders. He recanted his statement, and he said he was joking and had not committed any murders. On January 10th, 1994, police recovered the remains of 71-year-old Mark Peters, a retired electrician and veteran, in a cabin belonging to the family of Glen Rogers in Beattyville, Kentucky. Peters had earlier taken Glen Rogers in and allowed him to share his home in Hamilton before October 1993. That month, Peters was reported missing, along with his car and several valuable personal items, including antiques, guns, and a collection of coins. Rogers had disappeared. His brother Clay reportedly led police to search the family cabin for clues. Peters' remains were found there, bound to a chair and hidden by a pile of furniture. On September 28, 1995, Sandra Gallagher, a 33-year-old mother of 3, was seen to encounter Rogers at McRed's bar in Van Nuys, California. The next day, Gallagher's badly burned corpse was found in her truck, parked near Rogers' Van Nuys apartment. She was found to have been strangled. Authorities alleged that after murdering Gallagher, Rogers fled to the southeast, living for a time in Mississippi, Florida, and Louisiana. In each state, he was suspected of the murder of another woman. On June 22, 1999, Rogers was convicted in California of murdering Gallagher. He was already serving time in Florida for the murder of a woman there. On July 16, 1999, California sentenced him to death. According to Kathy Carroll, her sister Linda Price met Rogers at a beer tent in Mississippi State Fair in fall 1995. Linda repeatedly said, "Ain't he good looking?" Rogers and Price briefly shared an apartment in Jackson, Mississippi. Price was a single mother of 34 with 2 children, then 15 and 18. The last time Carol saw her sister was the night before Halloween 1995. The two planned to have Carol's grandchildren go trick-or-treating at Price's apartment, but Price did not answer her door on Halloween, and Rogers appeared to have left. Similar to his other suspected victims, Price was in her 30s and had red hair. She was found dead in a bathtub in her apartment. On November 5th, 1995, Tina Marie Cribbs was seen leaving the Showtown bar in Gibsonton, Florida with Rogers. A bartender told police that Rogers had bought drinks for Cribbs and her friends. He later asked Cribbs for a ride. 2 days later, a member of the cleaning staff at the Tampa 8 Inn discovered Cribbs' body in a bathtub, like that of Price in Mississippi. She had been stabbed in the chest and in the buttocks. A clerk at the motel told authorities that Rogers had arrived at the motel a few days before the murder. On November 5th, Rogers had paid for an extra night and asked that his room not be cleaned. The clerk saw Rogers putting his belongings into a white Ford Festiva. The next day, Cribbs' wallet was discovered at a rest area in North Florida. Police found that fingerprints lifted from her wallet in the motel room matched those of Rogers. On November 13th, Rogers was arrested in Kentucky while driving Cribbs' car. He claimed that Cribbs had loaned it to him and that she was alive when he left Tampa. On July 11, 1997, Rogers was convicted in Florida and sentenced to death for the murder of Tina Marie Cribbs. He was incarcerated in Union Correctional Institution on death row. Andy Giles Sutton was a known acquaintance of Rogers. Her slashed body was found on November 9, 1995, on a punctured waterbed in her apartment in Bossier City, Louisiana. The four women shared similarities in appearance. Each had reddish hair and was in her 30s. Rogers drove north from Louisiana and was arrested in Waco, Kentucky, after a 13-mile chase on November 13, 1995. Kentucky State Police Detective Bob Stevens noticed a man driving Cribbs' stolen car. He chased him, followed by Ricky Irvine Kentucky Police Officer Charles Cox. Trooper Ed Robinson and other officers set up a roadblock to stop Rogers. Robinson fired a shotgun blast that hit the rear tires, but it didn't stop Rogers. Robinson joined the pursuit. Sergeant Joey Barnes, who formerly served with Florida Highway Patrol, rammed his patrol car into Cribbs' stolen car and spun Rogers off the highway into a ditch. Stevens, Cox, Robinson, and Barnes and other officers surrounded Rogers and arrested him. A local TV news crew filmed Rogers' chase and arrest on the scene. After being convicted and sentenced to death for Cribbs' murder, Rogers was scheduled to be executed on Valentine's Day, 1999, in Florida. He has filed various appeals, but these have been denied. Rogers is still being held on death row at Union Correctional Institution in Rayford, Florida. After his trial, he appealed his conviction to the Florida Supreme Court, claiming that the state had not presented enough evidence to support the charges. Rogers also argued that the trial court should have granted the defense's motions for mistrial because a witness was allowed to testify about a misdemeanor for which Rogers was convicted in California. He claimed the prosecution was allowed to present an improper argument during closing arguments. His appeal was delayed until March 2001 and was ultimately denied. In April 2005, Rogers filed another appeal. It was denied in 2011. It was his last appeal. A 2012 documentary entitled My Brother the Serial Killer examined Rogers' crimes and included claims that Rogers had killed Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman in California in 1994. According to Rogers' brother Clay, Rogers claimed that before the murders, he had met Brown and was going to take her down. During a lengthy correspondence that began in 2009 between Rogers and criminal profiler Anthony Mioli, Rogers wrote and created paintings about his involvement with the murders. During a prison meeting between the two, Rogers claimed O.J. Simpson hired him to break into Nicole Brown Simpson's house and steal some expensive jewelry. He said that Simpson had told him, quote, "You may have to kill the bitch," unquote. In a filmed interview, Glen's brother Clay asserts that his brother confessed his involvement. Rogers' family stated that he had informed them they had been working for Nicole in 1994 and that he had made verbal threats about her to them. Rogers later spoke to a criminal profiler about the Goldman-Simpson murders, providing details about the crime and remarking that he had been hired by O.J. Simpson to steal a pair of earrings and potentially murder Nicole. Rogers was a subject of an episode of the FBI Files titled Deadly Stranger. He was also the subject of an episode of Southern Fried Homicide titled Smooth Talking Devil on Investigation Discovery. The Oxygen Channel series It Takes a Killer episode, The Casanova Killer, focuses on 4 of the murders linked to Rogers and the manhunt leading to his capture. In the film, The Murder of Nicole Brown Simpson, 2019, purports to tell the story as asserted by Rogers and his family about his involvement with Nicole Simpson. Rogers is portrayed by Nick Stahl, and Mina Suvari portrays Nicole Brown Simpson. For more content, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you.